You have 48 hours to get out of my house. That was the first sentence that pierced my ears. Cold as a dagger. It did not come from a stranger. Not from a creditor. And certainly not from an enemy. The one who spoke was my daughter-in-law, the one who used to call me mother. The one whose house I had sold to help her have this home. Yet today, in the middle of the kitchen I had been busy cleaning for the past 8 months. She sat slumped on the chair, eyes glued to the phone, hands clicking, not even looking up, not even looking at me once, but speaking as if ordering a servant to be evicted. And what about my son? He stood right next to me, nodding like a broken doll. No reaction, no objection, just nodding as if that cruel sentence was obvious. The son I had raised for 30 years, now stood there like a shadow, silently complicit in throwing his own mother out into the street. I remember at that moment, my hand was still holding the dish towel. The water was still wet. Cold. I stood there, frozen, my eyes looking at the young woman, Jessica, my daughter-in-law. And her face was as cold as a block of ice in January. I swallowed hard, my voice trembling but not breaking. What did I do wrong? He looked up, his eyes sharp as knives, his mouth spitting out words like spit. It's not about wrong or not. The problem is that we need space. The baby is coming, and you're here, annoying. You're hanging around the house all day, making me suffocate. I need peace. You move out, that's all. Hovering around, that word cut my heart to pieces. So cooking for them, doing the laundry, taking out the trash, paying the monthly electricity and water bills, all were just wrapped up in the word, hovering around. I didn't just hang around. I contributed. I didn't just pass by. I exhausted my strength to support their lives. And yet, in a single breath, I became redundant. Marcus, my son, finally spoke, but instead of defending me, he stammered out even more bitter words. Mom, maybe you should find a place of your own. At your age, living alone is more comfortable. Here isn't right for you anymore. Mom's age, that sentence was like the end. At 63, I, the one who raised him single-handedly, overcame years of being abandoned by my husband, worked hard to support his education, was now being suggested by him to find a suitable place for the elderly. What was that suitable place? A nursing home? A tiny room to wait for death? Is that what my son thought was good for his mother? I straightened my back, looking straight into their faces. My heart was pounding, the blood rushing to my head. But my voice was steady, coldly calm. When do you want me to leave? Jessica was a little surprised, probably thinking I would cry, beg, or scream about my achievements. But no, I just looked at her with the same eyes that had looked down on so many of the company's downers. The eyes that had silenced the entire conference room. This weekend is fine. You have 5 days to clean up. That's generous for us. 5 days. Just 5 days to disappear from the house I'd contributed $45 to buy. 5 days to erase all traces of my 8 months of servitude. I smiled faintly, a smile that made me shiver. That's generous. I'll start right away. Then I turned and walked into the tiny room they called studio in the old garage. The space that used to be a warehouse, now rented by me, was cramped and cold. I closed the door, leaned against it, and another smile appeared, the smile of someone who had just been released from chains. They thought they had won, that I would quietly disappear, carrying my humiliation with me. But they didn't know that every stab they made, every word they threw, was a hammer strike on the trigger that I had held back for so long. They thought I was a burden? Okay, I'll show them the consequences of disregarding the person who once saved you. They had just signed their own sentence. And I, Patricia Mitchell, would be the one holding the hammer. 8 months before I was kicked out of my house, I sat in a real estate office, my hands shaking as I signed the papers to sell the 3-bedroom house I'd owned for nearly 30 years. The house where Marcus grew up, where there were so many pictures of memories, where I planned to grow old with my old couch and the rose garden in the backyard. I sold everything, just to help them have enough money for a deposit. That day, my son hugged me and promised firmly, just for now, Mom, when we settle down, you'll have your own room, and you'll never have to worry again. That promise now sounds like a slap in the face. I gave them $45, almost all my life savings, so they could afford to move into Maplewood Heights. The place Jessica insisted on living, worthy of raising a child. Without my money, they would have to rent a shabby apartment or buy a rundown house in the suburbs. But no, Jessica would never accept that. I can't live in a gentrified neighborhood. My kids need a good environment. Good neighbors. Good schools. I still remember her voice clearly. Condescending and firm, as if I were just an outsider listening. So I poured it all out, believing that I was helping my family. What did I get in return? A corner of an old garage. People called it a converted studio. I called it a damp cement box. The ceiling was low. The walls were moldy. The insulation was bad. They also charged me an extra $800 a month as a cost contribution. I was stupid enough to think that was fair. That I was sharing the burden with my kids. But then, as the days passed, that sharing turned into humiliation. I cook for the whole family. But Jessica only complains about the salty and bland food, saying I make a mess in the kitchen. I do the laundry. She says I ruined her clothes. I clean the whole house. She says I disturbed her arrangement. I turn off the TV at 9 p.m. She says I watched it too late. I turn on the TV at 7 a.m. She says I disturbed her sleep. In short, whatever I do, it's wrong. And Marcus? He just stands in the middle, scratches his head and ears, then mumbles, "Please bear with it, Mom. My wife is sensitive." Sensitive? No, that's naked selfishness. That's treating me like an old maid. I remember one time I bought groceries, full bags of vegetables, meat, milk, and put them in the refrigerator. Jessica opened the refrigerator, slammed it shut, and said, "You bought this kind of milk?" I clearly said I only drink organic from that brand. "Didn't you hear?" I stood there, still holding my wallet in one hand. I had spent my own money to buy things for the family. And she yelled at me like a servant. The climax came that night. After washing the dishes left by their friends' parties, I sat down on the bed in the musty garage, my heart heavy. I asked myself, am I Marcus's mother? Or am I just a freeloader? Like they see me? I swallowed all my anger. Comforted myself with the thought, in a few months, when the baby is born, they will realize my worth. I will hold him. I will take care of him. I will become an important and indispensable part. But what was the truth? As Jessica's belly grew, instead of wanting me to be there to support her, she saw me as a thorn in her side. She began to insinuate that I took up too much space, that I stressed her out. And then, that day, it stopped hinting and hit me straight in the face with the final sentence. "You have 48 hours to get out of my house." That was the price of kindness, the stupid kindness of a mother who puts her children before herself. I bought myself a one-way ticket to hell, only to be thrown out of there like a piece of trash by the very children I saved. Sitting in the garage that night, I opened each box and folded each shirt. Each time I folded, I remembered the nights I stayed up to hold Marcus when he had a fever. The years I took the bus twice to make it to school. The times I denied myself my own happiness to save money for him. All those sacrifices, in the end, were just 5 days counting down to disappear from his life. But what my son didn't know, I wasn't the type of person who would accept being trampled on easily. I had survived 35 years of office warfare, climbing from a lowly secretary to a senior manager, facing all kinds of tricks, hearing all kinds of insults. I knew how to swallow my pride and wait for the right moment. And I knew that when the opportunity came, I would strike without fail. That night, after I finished folding the last shirt, I put it in my suitcase, closed it, and turned on my phone. My contacts were still filled with numbers that Marcus and Jessica probably never thought I had. I clicked on the name, Richard Chen. The man, a former colleague, was now the owner of a large real estate development company. When Richard picked up, I smiled. "Richard, it's me, Patricia. Do you remember me? I think it's time we worked together." The call with Richard that night lasted just over an hour. But it was enough to make me understand. I was no longer the one who had been ousted. I was back. "Patricia, it's amazing to hear your voice. You're still as sharp as ever. I've been missing someone like you, someone who knows the law, understands how the city works, and especially knows how to judge people." I listened and chuckled. Yes, I know how to judge people, and that's how I knew I'd raised an ungrateful son and brought home a greedy daughter-in-law. Richard told me about the Maplewood Heights project, the very neighborhood I'd just been kicked out of. They'd targeted a bunch of old houses for renovation, but they lacked information on the inside. I almost laughed out loud. I didn't just know the inside. I'd lived for 8 months as a camera stuck in the heart of that neighborhood. I knew every household, every problem, every crack in the wall, every leaky roof. You want information? I have a notebook, I said firmly. Richard was silent for a few seconds, then laughed. Well, Patricia, welcome back to the battle. The next day, I left the garage with my only suitcase. I didn't cry, didn't look back. Marcus watched me leave hesitantly. Mom, are you sure? I just gave him a cold look. Don't worry. I can take care of myself. I've been taking care of myself since before you were born. I signed a lease for a small apartment in the center. It wasn't big, not fancy, but it was bright, with windows overlooking the street and a balcony big enough for me to drink a cup of coffee in the morning without anyone criticizing me. The feeling of living without asking permission, without having to watch for footsteps, without having to listen to complaints about the TV or hot water, it was so freeing that I felt like I had just escaped from prison. In the evening, I opened my laptop and took out my notebook. I've been writing for the past 8 months. Each line is evidence. House number 1247 Elmwood, illegally renovated garage. Unstable electricity. Substandard self-installed toilet. Number 1251 to 91-year-old woman. Not strong enough to keep the house. Yard full of weeds. Has been warned by the city. Number 1239, divorced couple. Struggling to sell the house. Number 1255, house with cracked foundation. For sale for a long time without anyone buying. I wrote everything down, like an undercover reporter. Back then, I thought I was just writing to kill time. To keep from going crazy because of Jessica's coldness. But now, each line is ammunition. The day I met Richard again at a coffee shop near the neighborhood. He looked at me with a look of both respect and excitement. Patricia, this is a treasure trove. You don't just observe, you analyze like an expert. I know how you got to that management position before. I took a sip of coffee. Smiling, you haven't seen it all. The most powerful weapon hasn't been used yet. I pointed to the map. Right in the center of his company's planning area was Marcus and Jessica's house. The nest they kicked me out of was the fatal weakness. Number 1247. On paper, it's fine, but inside is a time bomb. Illegal garage renovation. Substandard electricity. Illegal toilet. I've been there, I know. Richard tapped his pen on the table. Excellent. And are you sure the city will keep an eye on this area? I'm not sure, I said, then pulled an envelope from my pocket. I know. Inside the envelope was the notice I'd received when I'd co-signed for Marcus. The city was scheduled to conduct a thorough inspection. Maplewood Heights was on the first list. Any unauthorized renovations would be exposed. The cost of legalization? At least $20. As much as $25. And where was Marcus going to get that kind of money? With a mortgage and a child to feed? Richard leaned back in his chair, laughing heartily. Patricia, you're not just bringing information. You're bringing opportunity. I like you. That afternoon, I signed a contract to be a community consultant for Pacific Development. The salary didn't matter. This wasn't just a job for me. It was a battlefield, and I had just chosen sides. Back at my new home, I stood by the window, watching the streetlights stream in. I remember Jessica's eyes as I dragged my suitcase away, a little surprised. A little contemptuous, as if she expected me to drag myself away and beg. She must have thought I would find some cheap nursing home and eat away at my life. Little did she know that in a few days, I would appear at her doorstep again, not as the one who had been evicted, but as the one who brought papers, regulations, and the chance to turn her dream home into rubble. Marcus and Jessica had forgotten one thing. I was not a stupid old woman. I was Patricia Mitchell. I had fought greedy bosses, stood in meetings where one small mistake could cost my career. I had overcome them all. And now, I would overcome the very people I had called family. No, this was not just revenge. This was justice. The justice of a mother who had been betrayed. The justice of a woman who refused to be trampled. I put my hand on the notebook and whispered. They thought they had won. But from this moment on, I am the one who is rewriting the game. On Friday afternoon, I wore the gray suit that used to scare many opponents in meetings. My hair was neatly tied up, and my heels clicked decisively on the familiar road. Next to me, Richard Chen, elegant in a dark blue suit, held a thick briefcase. We headed straight for 1247 Elmwood Drive, the place where I had been thrown out like trash. Through the glass door, I saw Jessica's face change color. She stared at me, as if she had seen a ghost. Marcus opened the door, his voice faltering. "Mom, what are you doing here?" I smiled, the smile of someone who took the initiative to hold a knife in his hand. "Hello, Marcus. This is Richard Chen, Director of Pacific Development. We're here to discuss business." Richard handed over his business card, his voice smooth. "We specialize in buying real estate with potential for renovation. I heard your house has some problems. We're ready to offer a solution." Marcus looked at me, his face pale. Jessica was walking behind her husband, her belly protruding, her eyes blazing. "Patricia, what are you up to?" I looked straight at her, my voice cold and calm. "Nothing. It's just business. I'm consulting for the company. And this house is on the list." Richard continued. "We know the garage has been renovated. May I ask, do you have a building permit?" The air was thick. Marcus swallowed, not answering. Jessica rolled her eyes, trying to keep her voice steady. "We're not selling. This house is ours. You have no right to interfere." I crossed my arms and took a step forward. "Yes, the house is yours, but the city has just scheduled a full inspection. Any unauthorized items will be required to be fixed immediately. And the cost will be no less than $20. It could even reach $25. While you have a mortgage up to your neck and a baby on the way. Can you handle it?" Jessica paled. Her hand instinctively covered her stomach. Marcus stammered. How much?" Richard opened the file, coldly. "Minimum $10,000, maximum $25, no installments. The city wants it done within 60 days. Otherwise, heavy fines and enforcement." "But," he leaned back, his voice so light it seemed to slap them in the face, "we are willing to buy it back for $475 in cash. The transaction is done in 30 days. You're debt-free, and you've made a profit of more than $40 over the original purchase price." The room exploded into silence. I stood there, watching the sweat bead on Marcus's forehead. I saw Jessica's hands shaking, her eyes blinking rapidly. The $40 profit sounded good. But the price was losing my dream home, the home I'd helped buy. Jessica growled. "No, we're not selling. This is my son's home. This is our future. Don't you dare think about turning it into company money." I laughed, a dry laugh. "Your son? Your future? What about me, Jessica? Who sold their past to build this future for you? Who gave up their 3-bedroom house so you could live in Maplewood Heights? And this is how you say, you have 48 hours to get out. Okay, now it's my turn to give you a deadline, 30 days. Marcus raised his hands, pleading. "Mom, please, don't do this. We can fix it. We can find a way." Richard handed over his business card, interrupting. "You have time to think about it. But I advise you not to leave it too late. Once the city issues a ticket, the value of the house will plummet." I turned and walked out, Richard following. Our silhouettes disappeared into the afternoon sunlight, leaving the two of us standing there, stunned, in the house that seemed like a fortress, but now turned out to be nothing more than a sandcastle in the waves. On the way to the car, my phone rang. Marcus called in succession. I let it ring 3 times, then picked up on the 4th. "Mom, what the hell are you doing?" His voice cracked with panic. "Marcus, watch your language. I didn't do anything. I just stopped shielding you. I warned you in February that the unlicensed garage would be inspected. You brushed it off. You said it was too expensive. Here are the consequences." The line went silent. I knew he was remembering the night I showed him the permit. And he waved his hand like he was brushing dust. "No. Mom, that's too much trouble. Who's going to inspect it?" Now it was actually being inspected. And instead of being a shield, I became the one holding the lever. Marcus groaned. "Mom, I'm sorry. Jessica, she's stressed. Pregnant. Not in her right mind. Don't punish us for a moment of anger." I interrupted, my voice sharp. "Don't blame it on the pregnancy. She showed her true colors. And you, instead of defending your mother, nodded like a puppet." This isn't anger. This is the truth. And the truth has a price. I hung up, looking up at the red sky. I felt a surge of emotion. But not of regret, but of pleasure. At last, the outcast had returned, and brought a storm with him. That night, my phone rang like crazy. Marcus called, then texted, then called again. I let it go. 3 calls, 4 calls, 5 calls. On the 6th call, I picked up, my voice cold as metal. What's wrong? Mom, don't do this. I'm sorry. I'm stupid. I'm scared. Her voice was distorted as if she was about to cry. That Richard guy, he said if we miss the inspection, the house will lose value. There will be fines. There will be. Please talk to him. Please. I'll say it again, I said, emphasizing each word. Richard didn't force us. The city forced us. The law forced us. And the biggest force of all is your stupidity. Mom, please. We're having a baby. You know. Absolutely don't use your belly as a shield. I cut her off. The child is innocent. The adults are not. You two set fire to the house yourself. And now you want me to carry a bucket of water to put it out? It's over. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, heavy as if she had just tripped. Mom, she whispered, if I was stupid before. I'll fix it now. You said it would cost me as much as I need. I'll sign the papers. Please don't. I did. I said bluntly. 6 weeks ago, I prepared the permit application. Contacted the electrician, the plumber, the insulator. I arranged the schedule. Asked for a payment split that would fit both of your budgets. I paved the way. You just need to sign. But then, one fine morning, someone pointed a finger at me and said, you have 48 hours to get out. At that point, I put everything in a drawer and locked it. That's it. I heard something fall on the other side. Maybe the phone hit the table. Marcus felt like he had been punched in the chest. Mom, I don't know. I don't know because I don't want to know. I said, I don't want to read. I don't want to listen. I just want to order. So now you're on your own. This time, grow up. I hung up. A moment later, the apartment doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Jessica standing there, her face pale as paper. Her eyes red, her hands clutching her stomach. I opened the door a crack, holding the latch. Can you let me in? She said. Her voice thin as a thread. Why? Isn't your house big enough? She swallowed, breathing softly. Please, I was wrong. I was stupid. I was scared. Please tell Richard. Please pull back. I didn't pull anyone. I said, still holding the door. If you want to, pull your husband. Pull up the lost ego of both of you. Pull back the respect. What do you want me to do? I will do it. You say. I sign. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I never thought. No, you thought very carefully. I said directly, not raising my voice, but the knife went straight to my heart. You think like this. She's old. If she can stay, she can stay. If she can't, she can leave. This house is mine. I will give birth to children. I am the center of the universe. And my son stands behind you, nodding like a puppet. Jessica trembled. I was jealous. I was scared. Marcus always said you were good. You could do it. I felt small. I was stupid. You wanted me to kneel. I kneeled. I don't need to bow. I interrupted. I need boundaries. I need the truth. And the truth is, I'm not your life preserver anymore. I used to be a life preserver. I used to get stoned. In exchange, I get 48 hours to get out. I'm sorry, she whispered. Please save us this time. Once that's done, then wherever you want to go. Whatever you want to do. Listen, Jessica, I said slowly, not taking my eyes off her. Save someone once. They'll be grateful. Save someone twice. They'll get used to it. Save someone 3 times. They'll think it's your duty. I've been through it 3 times. She reached out to touch the door lightly, as if to hold on. But I held on tight. I won't let my child out on the street, she said, her voice suddenly sharp with the instinct of a protector. I'll keep the house no matter what. Keep it, I shrugged. See the city inspector. See the ticket board. See the mechanic. See the bank. I prepared that for you. You pushed me away. Now swim by yourself. She bit her lip until it bled. After a long while, she spoke softly, as if admitting her guilt to the judge. I was wrong. I used my power in the house to make you smaller. Because I was afraid of losing my place. I wanted to be the queen in my small territory. I traded my dignity to suppress you. Good. Keep talking like that. Tell your husband. Tell your parents. Tell the future child. About the price of looking down on others. I exhaled, closing the door a little. That's it for today. I'm tired. You won't forgive us? Forgiveness is one thing. Real life is another. The law doesn't know how to forgive. The term doesn't know how to forgive. The contract doesn't know how to forgive. Learn. I closed the door. The empty hallway echoed with its ragged breathing. Then silence. That night, I turned on my computer and checked my schedule. Monday. Meeting with Richard and the legal team. Tuesday. Working with the planning office on the Maplewood Heights inspection schedule. Wednesday. A final review of the target property list. I was as careful as if I were preparing for a court hearing, every piece of paper. Every number had to be crisp, legal, and free of any loopholes for someone to use as revenge. The phone rang. A message from an unknown number. Ms. Mitchell. This is Linda Morrison, Jessica's mom. I need to talk. I left a time slot for the next morning. Linda picked up on the first ring. Her voice was low, tired, but not evasive. Patricia. I heard part of it. As a mother, I know what it's like to be pushed out by your own child. I'm ashamed of Jessica. I apologize for her. I don't need an apology. I said, I need an adult to take responsibility. I understand, Linda said, honestly, but can you give them a way out? Not to keep their seats, but to learn without drowning. I looked out at the balcony. The early morning sun beating down on the cold concrete. There's always a way out. I said slowly, sell the house first, get the money, start over in a less frivolous place. Or if you want to keep it, grit your teeth and fix it properly, adequately, on time, without complaining. There are two paths. What I won't do is stand in the middle and cover it up. Linda was silent. Thank you for being straightforward. I'll talk to them. She hesitated, then added, whatever, please leave a crack in the door for the repair. I didn't close the door. I said, I just put a lock. At noon, Marcus called again. This time, his voice was less panicked, more tired. Mom, I talked to Jessica. I know you're right. I won't ask you to save me anymore. But listen to me. I'll do it. I'll fix it. I'll sign. I want to keep the house because I want to face what I've been hiding from. Not for pride, but for the lesson. Just please, when I do the right thing, don't turn your back. I was silent for a moment. In that silence, old memories passed. The boy with a fever. The mornings I ran 2 bus routes. The evenings I sat weighing every penny on the kitchen table. I wasn't soft. I was looking at the only thing worth keeping. Maturity. Okay, I said, if you really do it. No complaining, no blaming, no using your wife's pregnant belly as a charm. I'll stand by and watch. Just watch. No jumping in to save you. When you get to the other side, I'll unlock it. On the other side, Marcus burst into tears. Not exactly relief. It was the cry of someone who finally understood the rules of the game had changed. In the afternoon, Richard sent an email. The inspector confirmed Maplewood Heights is in the first round. 60 days. If Marcus's family chooses the fix route. I have 2 trustworthy contractors. Prices that are close to what you've estimated. You don't need to get involved directly. Conflict of interest. I'll handle it. I replied briefly, just follow the process. No exceptions, no priorities. At night, I sit alone with a glass of water in my hand. No alcohol. In the mirror, the 64-year-old woman looks back at me, not weak. Not proud, just sober. So sober that every word I say is a blade with a serial number. A logbook, a legal file attached. Tomorrow, I will go to work like everyone else. Not to live for anyone, but to live for myself. And the children? They have asked for a very expensive thing, the right to take responsibility for themselves. I have paid them back that debt. And if they fail again? I shrug at myself in the mirror. Then they sink. That is their own water. I am no longer a buoy. At the window, the city opens its eyes. The wind blows through the curtains, bringing into the space a clean night smell, untainted by the smell of cleaning someone else's house, unmixed with the nagging of any Jessica. I suddenly laugh, very softly. You have 48 hours to get out. They said. Good, I said to my shadow. Because it takes me exactly 48 hours to build a bridge, the kind that only I walk on. And if anyone wants to set foot on it, they have to pay with respect. On Monday morning, I closed my laptop and stuffed the notebook into my pocket. The phone rang again. This time, I answered. Marcus's voice. Not panicked. Not crying. Mom, I called the bid. I'm starting. Then go swimming, I said. Dry as ashes. Don't forget to keep your head up and breathe. Then I hung up and walked out the door. Light as a feather. 3 days later, I received a surprise call. The number. Linda Morrison, Jessica's mother. I picked up, my voice calm. Hello, Linda. There was a heavy breathing sound on the other end. Then a voice shaking but trying to stay calm. Patricia, I need to see you. Not for me, but for my daughter. And for the baby. We arranged to meet at a quiet suburban coffee shop. When we walked in, Linda was sitting there, her eyes sunken, her face like someone who hadn't slept for many nights. Sitting across from me, she didn't beat around the bush. I know Jessica was wrong. I know Marcus was wrong. They treated you badly, and I don't blame you for reacting that way. But I beg you, if there's a door for forgiveness, open it, not for them, but for the baby. I looked straight, without blinking. Linda, I sold the house, sold my past, to build a future for them. Then they threw me out on the street. I am not a devil. But I am no longer a lifesaver. This price is fair. The child did not lose anything. He still has a father, a mother, and grandparents. The only thing they lost was the house I bought for them. Linda bit her lip. Her voice choked. You don't understand, Jessica. She has never been so scared. She called me in tears, saying that her life had collapsed. I raised her to be a good person. And yet, good? I burst out laughing, not hiding my contempt. Good is telling your mother-in-law, you have 48 hours to get lost. Good is turning your benefactor into a maid, then throwing her away like trash? No, Linda, she is not heartless. She knows what she is doing. Linda lowered her head. Tears fell on the wooden table. I am ashamed of my daughter. I came here, not to make excuses. I came to ask you for a chance to give them a chance to make amends. I took a sip of coffee. My voice cold. The chance did not come from me. It came from the city's 60-day deadline. They want to keep the house? Pay for repairs themselves. They want to sell? Richard has already made an offer of $475,000. I did not close, nor did I open. I just stood there and watched. Linda raised her head, her eyes desperate. Patricia, do you really have no feelings for Marcus? He is still your son. I narrowed my eyes. He chose to stand with his wife. Nodded when I was thrown out on the street. He cut the bloodline himself. I did not do it. The meeting ended with a cold handshake. I left the shop, feeling indifferent, but that night, the phone rang again. This time it was Frank Morrison, Jessica's father. Patricia, he said, his voice cracking, you're destroying my family. I'm not going to sit still. I have friends in the planning office. I'm going to file a lawsuit against Pacific Development for using force to sell. And you're not going to sit still. I smiled faintly and replied simply. You go ahead. I'm not afraid. The facts are on my side. I'm just providing the information the city already has. And you want to get the law involved? Great. Let's see whose side the law is on. A few days later, just as Frank had said, the city inspector sent me a summons. I was to appear as an advisor. They wanted to know if I had a conflict of interest by listing my own son's house. In the icy conference room of City Hall, a young female inspector asked me, Ms. Mitchell, you have a family relationship with the owner of 1247. Right? I am Marcus Morrison's mother. I replied, my voice unwavering. Then why did you recommend that house for the development company? I looked her straight in the eye. Because it's the truth. The garage was renovated without permission. The electricity was substandard. The water was substandard. That toilet could even cause a sewage leak. I warned my son months ago. He ignored it. I didn't make it up. I didn't set it up. I just told the truth. Some people think you did it out of personal revenge. I laughed, my voice as sharp as a knife. Revenge? And my son, along with his wife, took my money to buy a house and then threw me out on the street. Is that called revenge? I didn't make anything up. I just stopped being a shield. If people call it revenge, then call it revenge with the truth. The inspector silently took notes. The meeting lasted more than an hour. Finally, they said, "We will investigate further. But you should know, if there is any sign that you have taken advantage of your position for personal gain, you will be held accountable." I stood up, holding my head high. I have been responsible all my life. Now it is time for my son and his wife to learn to be responsible for themselves. As I left City Hall, I knew clearly, this battle was no longer a family affair. It had turned into a family war, with Jessica's parents also involved. With the law being used as a weapon. But I was not afraid. Because unlike all of them, I had the only thing that mattered, the truth in my hands. And I swore I would use it to the end. The news came on a humid afternoon. Jessica had given birth prematurely and had to be rushed to the hospital. I received the call from Marcus himself, his voice trembling like the 10-year-old boy he had been. "Mom? Jessica, the baby, please come." I was silent for a few seconds, then answered briefly, "I came, but not for you. I came for the baby." The hospital room was white, the machines beeping steadily. Jessica lay there, thin, her eyes sunken, her hair disheveled. The baby, so small that it looked like it might disappear if anyone touched it, was in the NICU glass incubator. I walked in. The room fell silent. Jessica saw me, her eyes brimming with tears. She spoke hoarsely. You still came." "I came to see my grandchild," I replied, my eyes on the little creature. Not to ease anyone's conscience. Jessica's tears welled up, and she struggled to sit up. Marcus quickly supported her, but she pushed her hand away, trying to look straight at me. "Patricia," I thought, "many nights in this hospital. I understand. I made you redundant. I used my power to kick you out of the house you bought with your own money. All because I was jealous." I narrowed my eyes. "Jealous?" She nodded, trembling. "Marcus always talks about you. You are strong. You are independent. You can handle everything. I look at you and feel small. I feel inferior. I am afraid that my husband will respect you more than me. I am so stupid that I think that pushing you out is a way for me to keep my position." I burst out laughing dryly, the sound of my laughter making the whole room a few degrees colder. "Keeping your position by throwing away the person who gave you the foundation? That is truly suicidally smart." Jessica lowered her head, her voice choked with breathlessness. "I know, I was wrong. I turned her kindness into a tool to trample on. I pushed my mother-in-law out into the street like a stranger. I don't know what kind of person I've become." I approached the bed, stood tall, and looked straight down. "It's not, don't know. You know very well. You've tasted the sweetness of having someone to serve you. You feel superior when you can humiliate others. And you enjoy it. Don't blame it on hormones. Don't blame it on stress. This is nature." Jessica burst into tears, covering her face with both hands. Marcus turned to me, pleading, "Mom, that's enough. She just gave birth. She's very weak. Please." "Weak?" I turned around, glaring, when it stood in the middle of the kitchen, pointing at me and saying, "You have 48 hours to get out." Was I weak? When it threw every word of criticism. Was I weak? Don't use today's weakness as an excuse for yesterday's cruelty. The air was thick. Only the rhythmic sound of the machine remained. After a while, Jessica removed her hand, her face full of tears. "You can hate me. You can curse me. But don't hate my child. He is innocent. Please, meet him. Be his grandmother, even if you decide to abandon us." I turned my head to look at the little creature in the glass cage. The tiny hand moved slightly. My heart sank. I was not stone, nor was I steel. I was a grandmother, and she was my flesh and blood. "What's her name?" I asked. Marcus replied, his voice trembling slightly. "Patricia Rose. I want to name her after you, so that my daughter can have the same strength as you." Those words hit me deep inside. I turned away, hiding my slightly moist eyes. I took a deep breath, then spoke slowly. "Listen clearly, Jessica. I don't forgive with just a few tears. I don't forget just because of a few words of regret in the hospital room. If you two want me back in my life, you have to do it with action. You have to prove it every day. I will see my nephew, because he is innocent. But what about the family? I haven't decided yet. It's a suspended sentence, and the key is in your hands." Jessica nodded, choking back tears. I understand. I will do it. I swear. Marcus held my hand, his eyes red. Mom, please give us a chance at least. I pulled my hand away, my voice as hard as stone. Opportunities are not asked for with words. They are built with actions. Starting from today, if I see you doing it again, using me as a lifeline, then it's over. I walked out of the hospital room. The door closed, leaving behind a sob. I walked straight down the hospital corridor, taking each step firmly. People looked at me, perhaps thinking I was cruel. But only I knew, it wasn't cruelty. It was a boundary. That child would grow up. And I wanted him to see one truth. Family is not a place to be chased away or kept. Family must be built on respect. And if Marcus and Jessica want me back, they will have to learn that. Through blood and sweat, there are no shortcuts. 3 days after the hospital conversation, I received another call, this time from Richard. His voice was sharp but tinged with concern. Patricia, we have a problem. Jessica's father, Frank Morrison, has filed a formal complaint. He accuses our company of using coercive tactics, exploiting inside information to seize people's homes. And he named you as the guide. I curled my lips. I expected it. Frank is a guy who plays the use connections to pull people in the city game. Does he think that by involving the law, he can threaten me? Wrong. The law is something I've lived with all my life. That afternoon, I was invited to City Hall again. The conference room was cold, and 3 people sat across from me, a young female inspector, a legal advisor, and an investigator. White lights were pointed at my face like a criminal interrogation. Ms. Mitchell, the female inspector began. There are allegations that you have used your position as a consultant to seek personal revenge. Do you have anything to say? I raised my head. I have not used anything. I have only presented information that anyone with eyes can see. The garage was renovated without permission. The electricity was substandard. The sewage was illegal. I warned my son months ago. He ignored it. Now the law has come. That's it. The legal advisor interjected. But you have a family relationship with the owner. This is clearly a conflict of interest. I laughed. A laugh as sharp as a knife. A conflict of interest is when I make up a lie for personal gain. Here, I am only telling the truth. If the truth becomes a conflict of interest, then I ask, do we still need justice? The atmosphere was as tense as a string. I added another punch. You say I took revenge? What did my son do? He took his mother's money to buy a house, then colluded with his wife to kick her out. If anyone needs to investigate abuse, it's elder abuse. I have bank records. I have a house sale deed. Want to see it? The young inspector looked at me, his eyes flashing. They exchanged a few small words. The interrogation continued for another hour, examining every detail, every amount of money, every line in the contract with Richard. I answered clearly, without a single word shaking. Finally, they put down their pens. We will investigate further, but at the moment we have not found any signs of wrongdoing on your part. I stood up and adjusted my jacket. Good, because the wrongdoing is not mine. It lies with those who think they can turn other people's kindness into free money. 3 days later, Richard called back. His voice was excited. Patricia, I won. The city has finished its investigation. There is no evidence of coercion or misuse of information. Frank Morrison's complaint, withdrawn. I frowned. Withdrawn? How easy is that? I heard Frank had a tense conversation with his own daughter. Jessica confessed everything, from selling the house, contributing money, and being kicked out. Frank was livid, not wanting to be exposed any further. He took the initiative to call the city, asking to withdraw the complaint. I smiled faintly, but deep in my chest, a stone had just been lifted. I had entered the battle with the truth. And now, it was the truth that had silenced my opponent. That afternoon, Marcus called, his voice exhausted. Mom, the lawsuit is over. Jessica's dad has withdrawn. Jessica, she wants to see you. To apologize again. I was silent for a moment, then replied, I will come, but listen carefully. I am not here to soothe. I am here to set a final boundary. The hospital room was quiet. Jessica lay there, her face pale, her eyes wet. When she saw me enter, tears immediately welled up. You still came. I came for your daughter. Patricia rose. I glanced at the NICU incubator. Not for you. She nodded, trembling. I understand. But please listen to me. I have thought a lot. I have realized everything. I turned your kindness into a chair to sit on. I turned you into an inferior so that I could feel superior. I have no face left. I looked into her eyes. My voice sharp. Yes, you have no face left. But the child has. She has done nothing wrong. If you want to save anything, then be a good mother to her. Teach her to respect those who love her. Don't repeat the act of rejecting and trampling. If you fail, she will learn your bad habits. And I swear, I will not let it go. Jessica burst into tears, nodding like a person in court. I will, I swear. Marcus stepped forward, his eyes red. Mom, I swear too. I will fix it myself. Take responsibility for myself. I will not ask you to save me anymore. I just ask you, when we do the right thing, you will accept it. I took a deep breath, then spoke slowly. Okay, I will look. But remember, I am no longer a lifebuoy. If you sink, it is your choice. That night, I returned to my apartment. The city outside was still bright. The traffic was noisy, but inside me, a strange silence descended. I had just gone through a legal battle and won. I had just watched my daughter-in-law confess in tears and not collapsed emotionally. I understood. This was no longer a story of revenge. This was a story of reclaiming respect. And for the first time in years, I felt truly standing tall, not leaning, not falling, not shielding anyone. The first week after withdrawing the complaint, Marcus sent me a short message. I signed with the contractor. All electricity, water, insulation are redone. Inspection date, 28th. I signed myself. Paid for myself. No request. I replied with 2 words. Good. Swimming by myself. The crew entered the house at 7 a.m., drilling and cutting loudly. Jessica walked past the kitchen counter holding her stomach, her face pale, but did not dare to open her mouth to complain. For the first time, I saw her keep her mouth shut to listen to the law. Marcus sent daily progress photos. Attached invoices, new electrical wires, anti-shock electrical cabinets, standard waste pipes, our standard insulation. The garage toilet was demolished and redone. There was no more loophole. No more mother's rice bowl to make up for it. The night before the inspection, Marcus called. Mom, can you please look at the checklist? I want to make sure nothing is left out. I don't advise the dark. I replied, my voice dry as paper. If you want to see it, send me the official checklist. Copy Richard. Everything has to go straight. No one goes under the fence. Not even you. He was silent for a few seconds, then said softly, yes. On the day of the inspection, I stood on the sidelines. No reaching out, no suggestive glances. 2 men in reflective vests held clipboards, searching every outlet, every water valve, every installation distance. Marcus followed, his palms sweating. Jessica held her child in the room, breathing like someone who had just swum through a storm. By afternoon, the city's response email dropped, ting, into her inbox. Pass. Marcus sent a single message. I did it myself. I replied curtly, yes. And it should have been like that from the beginning. There were no fireworks, no hugs or kisses, just a newly plastered wall. Gradually drying, flat, clean, up to standard. The house didn't look much different than it had before. But it had stopped being a nest of lies. It stood upright, legitimate, the way I wanted everyone in this house to learn to stand. We started trying family time once a week. I set the rules. Be on time, talk the talk, whoever missed. Sees the guests off. No, remind me of the past. No, ask me about the baby. The schedule was set. Standing still. One time Marcus was 18 minutes late. And I stood up, put on my coat. This class is cancelled. Let's get to class on time first. The next day, he brought a bouquet of flowers to my door. I stopped him at the threshold. Don't bring flowers to apologize. Bring a schedule. Write down who did what. When. Who's responsible. And what happens if you're late. I'll sign it, and then we'll eat. He nodded. For the first time, I saw no more blind pleading in his eyes, instead, a belated understanding. Jessica chose the harder way. Therapy. She sent a long, unvarnished, emotionless letter. I was jealous because I was weak. I was controlling because I was afraid. I abused my power in the house because I had no self-respect. I used you as a tool to grow up in a distorted mirror. I'm not asking for your forgiveness right away. I'm asking you to let me do it again, week by week. I read it all, but didn't reply. 3 days later, I sent back a line. An apology is a receipt, not a payment. Cash is an action. The second month, they asked me to babysit Patricia Rose for an afternoon, due to an emergency. I looked at the calendar, empty. But I deliberately said, busy, and suggested, let's schedule it for next week. Consider it practice. Marcus sighed. Mom, can you be flexible? No. I cut him off. You two have been living on whims for too long. Your children can't grow up in a house that is always flexible. They kept quiet. The next week, right on time, the doorbell rang. Jessica came in with her baby. I opened the door, shook hands, no hugs. Picking up the baby, I whispered, hello Patricia Rose. We'll learn the hours first. Then learn to love for a long time. At their house, the slips still appeared. One evening, Jessica blurted out, Mom, can you help me with the grocery bill this month? I put my fork down on the table. Looked straight at her. Don't try to use Mom helps to get around Mom pays. No more of that. She blushed, swallowed the rest of the sentence, and nodded. I understand. Frank, Jessica's father, had to swallow his bitterness. Too. He called me, his voice much less strident. Patricia, I acted badly. I thought I could use the label relationship to threaten you. I was wrong. Good, I replied. Understood. From now on, whoever makes a mistake will correct it themselves. I will not back anyone up, not even your daughter-in-law's sister if she feels like being queen tomorrow. He smiled wryly. The message is as clear as a gun. Linda was more tactful. She came to my house, cooked a pot of chicken soup herself, put it on the table and said calmly, I don't ask for anything. I just thank you. As a mother, I know how hard it is to swallow the bitter pill called teaching grown-up children. But you forced them to swallow it. And maybe that's the only way they can get better. I nodded slightly. I didn't force them. The law forces them. I just stopped blocking it. Patricia Rose left the NICU after a month. She was small but surprisingly strong. The first time I held her at home, I tried to keep my face straight. But when her tiny hand grasped my finger, a hot spot hit my chest. Marcus saw it and said, I know you're soft-hearted. I looked up and stuck the thorn back into his tongue. Being soft-hearted is not being weak. Mistakenly, you're dead. In the evenings that followed, I taught them the basics that adults should have known long ago: budgeting, work schedules, baby schedules, the whoever sets it up cleans it up principle, how to ask, accept, refuse properly. I spoke like a judge reading the terms, one rule per sentence. No arguing, no coaxing. Marcus once smiled wryly. Our house is like a business. Good, I replied. A business has discipline. A house without discipline is just a temporary inn. The third month, they asked, can you stay one night a week to help with the baby? I looked straight at them. No. I'll come, and then go. I'm not coming back to be a maid. Jessica bit her lip. That's not what I meant. I know, I nodded, but boundaries have to be repeated. Until they're ingrained. They practiced gratitude the right way, not with gifts. Not with flattery, but with keeping their word. When they agreed to meet, they showed up. When I assigned work, they did it. When the baby cried at night, Marcus changed diapers, made formula, and didn't call Mom in the middle of the night. When the car broke down, he called the ambulance himself, not pressing the emergency button. When Jessica missed a deadline, she wiped away her tears, opened her laptop, and made it up properly. No texting, Mom, help. They missed a few times. I did the same thing. Cut. Halfway through a meal? Put down your knife and fork. Stand up. Conversation veering into blame? End. They texted, we'll give you 5 more minutes. I said, no. Start over. Not because I was being arbitrary, because I knew. Only when it hurts will you remember. At the end of the quarter, they asked me to meet at a small restaurant. Jessica held Patricia Rose. Marcus pulled out a chair. As soon as the food was placed down, Marcus took an envelope from his pocket and pushed it toward me. This paper is the boundary agreement. You wrote it. Jessica signed it. Each clause is a new habit. If we break it, you have the right to withdraw. I opened it. 10 lines. Correct and concise. No special cases. No unless. I finished reading it, folded it, and put it in my pocket. Okay, starting today, this is the family contract. I'll keep a copy. We both put a copy on the refrigerator door. Every day I see it. That day I remember that I'm learning to be a good person. Jessica exhaled, her eyes wet but not shedding another tear. I have a proposition? If you agree. It depends, I said coldly. You, be her godmother. Not to babysit, but to teach her respect, boundaries, responsibility. Teach her what her mother lacked. For a rare moment, I was silent for too long. She raised her hand in the air, grasping at the empty space as if for a ray of sunlight. I placed my finger in it, letting it close, warm and soft. I have a condition, I said. You teach her gratitude before she demands. Teach her thank you before she learns sorry. Teach her respect before she loves. If you can do it, I will be there, not as a lifeline, but as a landmark. Marcus nodded. Jessica nodded. No explosion, no applause, just 2 heads bowed, this time to principal, not to me. That night, back at my apartment, I put the boundary commitment in a drawer next to the old, cracked Maplewood Heights notebook. The 2 stacks of paper, one of mistakes, one of new disciplines, lay side by side like 2 banks of a river. In the middle was a bridge. I didn't carry them across. I just stood on the bank, watching, and if the bridge collapsed, I let them fall. I poured a glass of water, stood by the window. The city below was still noisy, still bright. People say, forgiveness is opening the door. No, forgiveness is changing the lock. Those with keys can come in. Those without, stay outside. Learn to be decent people. Tomorrow, we'll have our first proper Sunday dinner since 48 hours to get out. This time, I'll bring dessert. The only thing I'll bring, an hourglass. I'll put it on the table. Every time someone starts to slip into the blame begging bending zone, I flip the clock. When the sand runs out and still hasn't returned to its proper orbit. Dinner is over. It's not cruelty, it's discipline. And for this family, discipline is now compassion. 18 months after I was kicked out of the house with 48 hours to get out, I sat in the sunlit living room, watching Patricia Rose take her first steps. She took a few wobbly steps, then flung herself into my arms, clutching the hem of her dress. Marcus and Jessica clapped, eyes shining. I bent down, picked her up, and heard her mumble, "Gamma, Gamma," just one word, but it stopped the room. Marcus looked at me, eyes sparkling. Jessica pursed her lips to hold back tears. I knew this moment had not come by chance. It had been the result of a long series of pain, humiliation, boundaries, and discipline. Without 48 hours to get out, this day would not have happened. The family now had a tradition, Sunday dinner. I arrived on time, placing the hourglass in the middle of the table. When someone started to stray, I flipped the clock. No yelling, no threats. The sand grains fell, as if reminding, respect is not something you ask for. It is something you must keep. Marcus changed clearly. He knew how to stand up, knew how to take responsibility. No longer avoided. When the car broke down, he handled it himself. When the baby was fussy, he held it himself, lulled it himself, and did not call his mother in the middle of the night. Whenever there was a problem, he no longer said, "Mom, help me," but instead, "I have planned this. What do you think?" Just one word, but the difference was like heaven. Do it yourself, then ask. Jessica was different too. She attended therapy, learned to look straight at the jealousy in her heart. Whenever she wanted to control me, wanted to turn me into a free maid, she held back, took a deep breath, and said, "Please give me your opinion." Once, she was straightforward during a meal. "I used to want to push you down so I could feel like I was on top. Now I just want to stand sideways to learn how to walk together." I looked straight at her and answered briefly, "Okay. Stand sideways, but don't slide down." Jessica once tried to ask, "Do you regret it? If you could go back, would you sell your house to help us again?" I took a sip of tea and answered coldly, "No, I paid too much, but I don't regret it. Because that price bought me a lesson. Unconditional kindness is a one-way ticket to hell." I won't take that path anymore. Marcus listened and bowed his head. Mom, I understand. And I want Patricia Rose to grow up and learn that from you, from both her and us. I nodded. Yes. The only thing left for me to do is to pass on to the next generation a principle of life. Love is inseparable from respect. And family does not mean a license to look down on each other. Sometimes, I sit alone in my downtown apartment. The city lights shine on the glass doors. I look at the hourglass on the table, thinking about that fateful day. If I had cried and begged that day, I might have turned into a weak old woman, trampled forever in the moldy garage. But I didn't. I raised my head. I left. And I returned to the power of truth. People say, forgiveness is opening the door. I say differently. Forgiveness is changing the lock. And from now on, the key is in my hand. Whoever wants to enter must learn how to use it. Patricia Rose now knows how to walk steadily. She ran around the living room, then suddenly stopped, ran straight towards me. I bent down. She put her arms around my neck, whispered in a childish voice, Gamma strong. I smiled. A real smile, no longer contemptuous, no longer mocking. Yes, Gamma is strong. Because Gamma dared to say no. Because Gamma dared to let others fall, instead of drowning to save them. I kissed the baby's soft hair, then looked up, looking straight at Marcus and Jessica. Remember, I am here, but not to burden. I am here to teach. If you forget, the hourglass will tip over. And when the last grain of sand has fallen, I will walk away and never come back again. They both nodded, not daring to say another word. They understood. This family bond was being re-established, but not by the illusion of affection, but by the strong seams of discipline, responsibility, and boundaries. I looked at the baby laughing in my arms, and said to myself, this is the real victory. Not the house, not the lawsuit, but the fact that I turned tragedy into a lesson, betrayal into strength, turning those who despised me into unwilling students of life. The result was not a perfect family. The result was a family that knew fear, respect, and appreciation, and sometimes, just that, is enough to be called happiness.